Good day to you all. Namaste, Hare Krishna. Today's subject is on companionship, mating and sex from a Vedic perspective. So one thing I found very extraordinary and surprising when I first came in touch with Vedic culture through meeting the Hare Krishnas 30 years ago was that there was very open talks about sex. So I hadn't kind of met people before that openly talked about sex in Western society. And that's not because that in Vedic culture they're very fascinated by sex and that there's talk about it, and it's not because no one's interested in sex in the West, therefore it's not talked about publicly. But in the West it's like very sort of hush-hush and secretive and behind closed doors and everything like that. People are embarrassed like that. But everyone's attracted to sex, unless they're an enlightened, liberated soul or something like that. I'll give you an example how it's so, people are so embarrassed to talk about it and say that they, have some interest in the subject or whatever. That the post I did that we were going to talk about it yesterday, yesterday I put up a post that we're going to talk about on the subject, and only 2 people put a like or a love or something like that. So they were the honest 2. But no one else said anything, and no comments or anything like that. Whereas all of our other posts, even if they're on, more sort of, you could say, boring subjects or whatever, there was much more response and, reciprocation and things like that. So, I'm not surprised. I'm not complaining about that. I'm just explaining how it is in the West. That it's like a taboo sort of topic to talk about. But there's a great fascination in it. And in the Eastern culture, in the Vedic culture, it's a far different perspective they have on it. Like I explained that in the Vedic culture it says there are 4 basic needs of the human body. Actually every body, whether it's an animal body, a bird body, a plant body, a fish body, whatever, all the different species, 4 needs. What are they? Eating, sleeping, defending, and mating. So it's explained just very black and white, just matter-of-factly, not all emotional and sentimental and everything like that, and getting excited about it and everything. No, we're just explaining it in a very down-to-earth, logical, scientific way. And, presented very differently. Normally, if people are going to talk about sex in the West, it's like, with an intimate friend or something like that, and I had a really good time with my girlfriend or boyfriend last night, and we did this and that, and blah, blah, blah. And we enjoyed so much, we had a great time and everything. But in the Vedic culture, the way they talk about it is very differently. It's explained that sex is the underlying principle of the whole material world. that there's an attraction between the male and the female in every species. Like I said, animal, bird, fish, human, no difference. There's an attraction between male and female. And that's a physical attraction, a sexual attraction. And it's explained that is the binding force, that attraction between male and female. That's what binds the soul to the material world. Of course, it's explained that we're not just the body. This is a fundamental point also, that we're not just the body, but there's an eternal soul. There's an eternal soul within the body. And due to material attachment and different attractions that we have to material objects in this world, then because of that attachment, Mother Nature, the universe and Krishna and like that, they fulfill our desires. Okay, you like women? Okay, take birth as a woman. You like a man? Then take birth as a man. You like to fly? Okay, take birth as a bird. You like to swim? Okay, take birth as a fish. Like so, because of material desires that we have, that causes us to take birth again. So as it said, this cycle of birth and old age and disease and death, which is called samsara in Sanskrit, the cycle of birth and death, of coming into a body and leaving it, and coming into another one and leaving it, again and again and again. This cycle is perpetuated mainly because of sex desire. Other desires are there, of course, too. Not that that's the only desire, but that's the number one. Why is it the number one? Because it said in them, talking materially in terms of pleasure, that's number one pleasure. It said that the number one material pleasure, enjoyment, is through this interaction of the male and female in sex. So therefore, that is the greatest, it's said, a binding knot that ties together the hearts of the male and the female. And because then the heart gets tied together like that, then we're so absorbed in our body and the partner's body and the house and the car and the transportation. It used to be horses, now it's cars, and all the paraphernalia that goes with the house. And then, of course, when the man and woman unite, what's one of the main byproducts? Children, like that. And then they have children, then you're absorbed in your grandchildren. So first of all, you're absorbed in your children, then you're absorbed in your grandchildren, and so forth like that. And you might say, well, what's wrong with being absorbed in your house and your wife and your kids and your grandkids and everything like that? I'm not saying that it's 100% automatically going to be wrong, but I'm just saying that according to Vedic culture, because of the absorption in those material things, that is the cause of us continuing the cycle of birth and death, and not the soul not being able to get liberated from the material world. However, there is a way that we can still have all those relationships with the partner and the house and the animals and children and so forth, and not get entangled. So we can explain that, and that's through side by side we having a relationship with all these material people and objects and that. We want to develop our loving relationship with the Supreme Person. And that's, according to Vedic culture, is the only way out. The only way out of this cycle is if we can develop our loving attraction and attachment to the Supreme Person. So what we have in the beginning, of course, is we're attached to material things. That's lust. Means, why do we want to have a relationship with the opposite sex? To please our own senses, generally. Why do we want to have a car? To please ourselves. the house to please our own senses, to have children because it makes me feel good, makes me happy, to get money, because the money makes me feel good, makes me happy. So that's what lust is. It's explained in the Vedas that lust means the desire to please your own senses. The body is made up of senses, eyes and nose and tongue, genitals, ears, hands and legs and so forth. So it's all different senses. So this is what the body is. So when we have a desire to gratify our own senses, our own body, that's defined as lust. However, the opposite of that is when we have the desire to please the senses of the Supreme. And that's called love. So in Sanskrit, lust is called Kam, K-A-M-A, Kama, and love is called Prema, P-R-E-M-A. And they're completely opposite. They're diametric opposites. Lust to please our own senses, and love to please the senses of the Supreme. And so we know what the body needs. The body needs, we said, food, a place to sleep, a companion, and some mating, to reproduce the species and to protect itself. But is that what the soul needs? No. That's not nourishing the soul at all. What the soul needs is love. And you can't get that nourishment for the soul from material things. From material things. The nature of material things is that they're all temporary. They're all temporary, and they're all full of ignorance. They're not conscious. This is like we say, dead matter. It's just dead matter. Like I'm sitting on a chair. I'm sitting next to a table. Can I have a loving relationship? Can I get fulfillment out of this chair and this table? I mean, it's useful to sit on the chair. I mean, I can sit on the floor, but it is useful. But can you have a loving exchange with a table and a chair? Not a very satisfying one. Not much reciprocation there. And the other. So that's two qualities of matter: is it's temporary and it's ignorant, no consciousness. And also the final, not the least one, is it's full of suffering. And that's a fact. That ultimately, like I said, everything grows old, everything gets diseased, and everything dies. The house will break apart and the car will be destroyed. Like today, I had car issues. I had to take my car into the mechanic and found that it's going to cost me, thousands of dollars to get it fixed. So, there's not much pleasure in that. It's just pain like that. So. Whereas, is that what the soul is? No, the soul is the opposite. The soul is eternal. And the soul is full of knowledge, or full of consciousness, and is full of bliss. That's our nature, is to be blissful, to be happy. And so it's the opposite to matter. So that's why it's an incompatible situation for the soul in the material world. And like I mentioned, and part of the topic is, that often in modern society that, companionship and mating and sex can end up in frustration and be very complicated. And that's why. Because we're an eternal, conscious, blissful soul, and we're trying to enjoy some, temporary, ignorant, material object full of suffering. So it's not going to bring us to a very good result if that's our objective. It doesn't have to be. End up in that way. But we've got to change our attitude towards it. Like the attitude towards a partner in Vedic culture, the attitude of the husband to the wife and wife to the husband, and parents to the children, and to their parents, to the grandparents or whatever like that, to everything, is one of service. And that is the nature of the soul. Because I said the nature of the soul is we need loving relationships. But what is love? Can you define what love is? Love actually is not a naming word, a noun. If you say to your partner, I love you, they're going to say, that's not good enough. You're saying you love me, but prove it. Cook something for me, take me out for dinner, take me for a walk on the beach, buy me a gift, like they get me some flowers, so love is actually a verb. If you have a feeling towards someone, then you want to do something for them. So actually love means service. In Vedic culture it's understood. It means service. So that's the attitude that people are trained in Vedic culture, as a life of service, as an attitude of service towards every creature. And not like the Western way I was trained from birth for the first 20 years, was a life of just trying to, like I said, gratify the senses. Just try to enjoy myself. And do you want to know where that led me? Towards being so confused and so frustrated and so lost. So I've seen, both sides, and I tell you what, from my point of view, Vedic culture is far, far superior. Far, far superior. We're so primitive in our Western ideas about how to live and everything. It's just so barbaric. And it's such an advanced civilization. Many of the old cultures, were far superior. Vedic culture is said to be the oldest culture, the original culture from which all the other ones have come from. So it's just beautiful, just incredible. And it can make all relationships that were initially, like I was like before, I was such an antisocial person, and I was just hiding away in the native bush of New Zealand, because I found relating with human beings very agitating and disturbing and that. So, it just brought me stress, and anxiety. So I was hiding away in the bush, and just trying to have a relationship with plants. But like I said, you can't really, relate to the plants or, inanimate objects so satisfyingly. So that wasn't very fulfilling either. But after I came across Vedic culture, now I can interact with anyone and everyone, and people wouldn't believe it because once you start me talking, I can't stop talking, but before I wasn't like that at all. I'd hardly say anything. I was like a tortoise in a shell with all the arms and legs and the head, withdrawn inside, but now it's like, pop my head out like that. And that's because it just changed my whole perspective on life, from a life of trying to make myself happy and always ending up getting frustrated, to forgetting about my own happiness and just trying to help others to be happy, or trying to give pleasure to the Supreme, like that. And that immediately brings one immense, happiness from within oneself. And that's what we're trying to learn in a genuine spiritual practice, to get happiness from within ourselves, rather than from trying to get happiness externally from ourselves. Like sex is an external pleasure. It's an external pleasure. But I'm not questioning that there's no pleasure in it. There is pleasure in it, but there's far, far, far more pleasures one can get through connecting within, with the soul, with the super soul, with the supreme soul. Far, far more. And the evidence of that it's far, far more is that if a spiritual practitioner does connect spiritually and find that divine love, that pure love, then one is easily able to give up material pleasures, of which, as I said, sex pleasure is the greatest, in the material world. But a spiritual practitioner is able to give that up. So that's showing us evidence that there is a greater pleasure. Otherwise, how is it possible? If you told an ordinary person that it's possible to give up sex, they'd think you're nuts. They think you're crazy. And but it can be done. It can be done. I have seen it in others, and even in my own journey, I've seen that things change. Your desires can change. Desires can change. So, yeah, we need to see the bigger picture. We need to see the bigger picture. And otherwise it doesn't make sense. Nothing makes sense. It's like a jigsaw puzzle. When you see the picture on the box, then it's easy to put those 1,000 pieces together. But imagine if you didn't have the picture of the box, the puzzle, and you just got 1,000 pieces all in different places, and you're trying to put it together. It's very confusing by that. So Vedic culture gives us the complete picture. That we're an eternal soul that is yearning for that pure, loving relationships of service. And this body is just a machine, a vessel. However, like, we're in this body, right? So it has needs, and we can't deny them. We shouldn't deny them. That would not be right. I mean, you can't just stop eating or stop sleeping, or stop, having companionships and stuff like that. So as long as the body is alive, you have to give it what it needs. But we just want to make, the soul's connection with inside this body. We're like a passenger, this body's like a vehicle for the soul. So we want to keep it a very wholesome relationship with this body, and we don't want to make it a painful relationship. So to do that, how to do that, that is the science that we want to look at. So there's many things to cover, but we'll just do whatever we can within this short time. So in the West, our relationships are sort of love at first sight, right? You see some opposite sex and you get attracted to them, and you want to have a relationship with them and enjoy with them. But we've put our first foot wrong by doing that, because you've started off that relationship with another person just with lust. They look good or whatever like that, or they've got a lot of money or something and you want that or whatever like that you can enjoy. So that's not a good start. So in the Vedic culture, what do they do to get started? Well, what they do is that they have loving parents that want the best for the kids. So the parents would, when the child is very young, their boy or girl is very young, they would try to find a compatible, and that's a very important word to use, compatible partner for their dear child. Because they want, obviously, the parents have the best interests of their child in mind, so they will try to select a partner that will be, that will be a very happy combination, very compatible, and will be a lasting, combination. So, and when would they start looking and finding like that? Believe it or not, I mean, some of you might have heard of that, and some of you might think it's very barbaric. But they would find a partner even before the child reaches puberty. So we know when is puberty? It's a little bit different, but 12, 13, 14 or whatever like that. So, and we might think that's very uncivilized and barbaric. But actually there's reasons for that, and we'd like to explain what it is. That, once the boy and the girl reach puberty, that's when the sex desire comes, right? Before then, a little kid, boy or girl, doesn't have any sex desire. But at a certain time, when the body changes to a certain point, hits puberty, right? Then the whole way you look at the world changes. And then you start to see, oh, this is an opposite sex there, and I want to have a bit of fun there. So like I said, the heart's attracted. There's a knot in the heart develops. So that can start from there. So what they try to do in Vedic culture is find a partner for their child before that happens, so that it's not necessary that the two, boy and the girl, are going to live together, when puberty comes. But they know when puberty comes that I have a husband, I have a wife, you know. So definitely before puberty, the boy and the girl would not be living together. But shortly after the boy and the girl reach puberty, then they would be living together as husband and wife. And then naturally, of course, because that's an instinctive thing, you know, mating would be there. And, you know, children would be produced. So the idea is the mind, to keep the mind peaceful. Keep the mind peaceful. Like what happens in modern society, let's compare. Okay, we reach puberty and we don't have a partner, but the desires are so strong. And you just find her if you can. If you can, you know, if you can't, well then more frustration. And if you can, then more frustration. Because probably it's not a compatible person. Because what was your criteria for a partner? Oh, they got to look like I want them to look. You know, they got to have particular features. You know, the hair and the face and the breasts and everything have got to look in a particular way and everything like that. So it's just like very superficial attraction like that. And they have a bit of a fling and everything like that. And they gratify themselves for a few moments like that. And then, you know, that's it. Then as soon as the other person doesn't do what I want, as soon as the other person doesn't please my senses, then ta-ta, see you later. See you later. And even if, you know, and then that's whether it's married or not married, you know, so it's not very solid. And a lot of people don't even bother getting married anymore because they, you know, they think it's just a pain, you know, and you're going through all that trouble to get married and spending money and everything. And then, you know, when there's a divorce or whatever, then the partner takes half of your wealth like that. So, and that's very painful. Like that, so why get married? And that's what people think, right? So they don't even bother anymore, so they just live as partners. But so why get married? You know, that's an interesting point. You know, the idea in Vedic culture, and it's in every culture, is whether it's Christian, Hindu, Muslim, you know, whatever like that, the marriage is there. Why marriage, you know? The point of marriage is actually to restrict sex. It's a paradigm shift, right? Looking at it from, I never thought about that. But it's actually the purpose of marriage is to restrict sex. Because what do we want to do? We want to have sex with everyone. You know, a man wants to have sex with every girl, and a girl wants to have sex with every boy. But marriage says, no, only one person, you know, for your life. You know, so that's the whole idea, to restrict sex. That's why marriage is there. That's the purpose of marriage, to restrict sex. And you think, that's crazy. Why would you want to restrict sex? Sex is the only reason why I want to live, is to have sex. It's such an enjoyable thing. But actually, once again, you've got to understand, you know, the big picture. That's not the purpose of life, is to just have sex and eat. You know, that's what all the animals, that's their purpose. Just eat and have sex, and the birds eat and have sex, and everything just eats, sleeps, and have sex and protect themselves from danger. But is that the purpose of the purpose of human life? No. The purpose of human life is to finish the cycle of birth and death, get out of this cycle. In Sanskrit, it's called Purna Janma Jaya. Purna means again, Janma means birth, and Jaya means victory. So to be victorious or successful over taking another birth, we don't want another birth. You know, so we have a different purpose. So that's why, you know, the principle of marriage was there, to restrict that. So what's the problem with having sex? Like I said, you get so absorbed in trying to just gratify your senses that causes you to get another body. Nature gives you what you desire. You want to enjoy in this way? Okay, I'll give you that body. So that locks you into the cycle. You know, so the whole idea is to restrict the sex so that you can focus on something else, right? You can focus on something else. What is that something else? Then you can focus on your relationship with the Supreme. That's the idea. But you can only focus on the Supreme if you control the mind and make the mind peaceful. Because the mind is always absorbed in lust, then so agitated by those thoughts. Where is a woman? Where's a woman? Where's a man? Where's all money? Where's a house? All these things. then as long as you agitate in that way, then God's not in the equation. Krishna's not in the equation. And then your life is spoiled. Then you're going to spend your whole life enjoying your senses and die and take birth again. So we need to keep that under control. I'm not saying stop sex, but we need to regulate it. So that's very important, to keep it under control. We don't want it to get out of control. We want to keep it under control. So in what cases should sex be used? It's not rocket science. What's the purpose of mating? Can you tell me? Can anyone tell me what the purpose of mating is? In every other species it's obvious, right? It's to reproduce. The reason why we should have sex is to reproduce. That's what it's for. It's not just to have fun, not just to enjoy, but it's to reproduce the species. So the species can, continue. We don't become extinct. So every species is they're all having sex everywhere, and all species, but they all have, the same result. They produce more of the same species. Only in human beings we have some weird idea that we can just enjoy sex, but we don't want to reproduce. So this is another reason why we create such a complex situation, because there's going to be reactions to that. And by reactions, I don't mean good reactions. There's going to be suffering reactions called bad karma. So say in the West, what do? We want to enjoy our genitals. Sex is the genitals, right? So we want to enjoy in that way. And you try to stop anything appearing from that, any child coming. And then we call it contraceptives. I don't need to go into details. There's so many kind of contraceptive methods to try to stop a child coming. And then, unfortunately, if all those contraceptive methods fail, then the woman may have an abortion, which is a terrible outcome, and no other species does that. No other species, the mother kills a child like that. Only the civilized humans, that's just a joke, do that, so it's really unnatural, very unnatural, to try to stop the result of the natural result of sex coming, stop the child coming. It's so selfish. We just want to get some short-term gratification, and and we don't want to take any responsibility to look after a child. I'm not saying everyone does that. I mean, heaps of people do produce children, but I'm just saying that is very common. That is very common. And even if people produce children, mothers and fathers produce children, they might be doing that contraceptive methods and abortions side by side as well, like that. So yeah, it's not a very good scenario, because it brings about bad karma. We have to suffer, because we've stopped that. A soul has come into the mother's womb with the idea of taking birth and getting an opportunity to advance in its evolutionary cycle, and we stopped it. You blocked. It's like you're trying to come into a house. You try to come into your own house. You try to come into your own house, and I don't let you come in. That's what abortion is like. You're trying to come into your own house, and I stop you entering your house, like that. So that's sinful, like that. That's bad karma. So in Vedic culture, it's not like that. You just get married at an early age, like I said, before your mind gets agitated. So you continually remain peaceful, and you're focusing on developing a relationship with the Supreme. At the same time, you have bodily needs, so you fulfill that with your legitimate partner, like that, and produce children. And the idea is not just that you pop out kids either. Not okay, animals just pop out kids left, right, and centre. But our purpose of popping out kids should be, if we're spiritually evolved, that we want to help our children, who are souls in a human body also, that we want to help our children. We hopefully love our children. If you really love them, would you want them to suffer? Put up your hands if you want your kids to suffer. No, well, but that's in the material world, is suffering of old age and disease and death and so forth. So if we really love our kids, we want to help them get free also. We want to help ourselves get free from the cycle of birth and death, samsara, but we also want to help our children to do that. So the parents should be not only producing kids like cats and dogs do, but to educate them and give them spiritual knowledge. So that's what they would do in Vedic culture. So after producing children, often they would send the child to live with a guru, a spiritual master, for some time, so that they could get enlightened, trained up by the guru, by the spiritual teacher. So that's real love. That's real love. Otherwise, why do you want to bring a soul into this world just to suffer? That's not very, not a very good thing like that. So there's a lot of difficulties in raising children, no doubt. And that's why people do use contraceptive methods and abortions. Why? Because there is a lot of difficulties in raising children. And giving birth to children, it can be very painful to the mother. And I in the beginning, when I first met the Hare Krishnas, they said that the four sufferings in the material world is birth and old age and disease and death. I could relate to the last three, but I couldn't relate to the first one. I said, what's wrong with birth? Birth is a good thing, right? No, but actually I've seen two of my own kids take birth, and I tell you, it's suffering, both for the mother and probably for the father too. I mean, I was on at least one of the two, I was crying like anything, seeing the miserable condition that my wife was in, and she nearly died, we're going in the ambulance, I still remember. And then the child didn't want to come out, so, there's so much sufferings, So people don't want to go through all these things, so they try to block the child coming like that. And, So my point of talking about this is that to make it all worthwhile, you're going through all these difficulties of bringing kids into the world and bringing them up and everything. And you've got to send them to school, and you've got to spend so much money, and you've got to educate them and try to get them married and stuff like that if you're a responsible parent and everything. It's a lot of headache and time and stress and money, and you've got to work damn hard to support all that and everything. So how does Mother Nature make that all worthwhile for you? Mother Nature puts a pleasure coating on the genitals. Puts a pleasure coating on the genitals. That's why it said that the sex life is like a heavenly pleasure there. But just that's what I'm explaining, is that pleasure is there to be an impetus for us to reproduce. That's why the pleasure is there. But now what I'm saying, the criticism is that, but you want the pleasure, but you don't want to follow through with the purpose of the activity, which is reproducing, which is why nature has put the pleasure there. You know what I'm saying? So Mother Nature has arranged that there's so much pleasure in that sense, that genital, to make it worthwhile for you to reproduce. But then you're cheating the system, because you just want to take the pleasure, but you don't want to produce the children. That is definitely going to be a reaction for that, But that's why the pleasure is there. In every species, they're motivated to have sex because it's very enjoyable. But that enjoyment is there to motivate to produce the children. Right? Otherwise, no one would do. If you just had to, work hard to bring up kids and, and all the difficulties and grey hair and everything that goes with it, and there was no pleasure in the beginning, then no one would do it. No one would do it. And and then there's a power of illusion in this material called Maya that makes us forget the sufferings we've gone through. Because the mother, right, when the mother gives birth, she probably, most of them vow, I'm near at that time of delivering the child, that vows that, well, that was so painful, I'm never going to do that again. But then she forgets, right? She forgets, and then she does it again, and then again, like that. And that's part of the material world. There's an illusory energy, Maya, working, because that Mother Nature knows what's in our heart, that we just want to gratify our senses. We just want to enjoy. So she said, okay, have another go. Have another try. Like that. So in Vedic cultures is such a different paradigm. Like I said in the beginning, right, that in the West we keep it all secret and everything. It's not that we're not interested in sex, but we keep it all secret and private and everything like that behind closed doors. But in Vedic culture it's completely different. Like say the boy and the girl get married, right, that, and then they have a desire, okay, now we're ready, we want to have a child. So what do? It's all secret behind closed doors. I mean, the activity is in private, of course. But before they try to conceive the child, they openly communicate their desire, can you believe it, to the whole village. Imagine that before people used to live in villages and stuff. So you go and tell all your uncles and aunties and nephews and cousins and everything like that, and the local village guru and everything, teachers. My wife and I would like to conceive a child. Please give us your blessings. Please give us your blessings so that we can have a nice child, And amazing, completely revolutionary, mentality like that. And then they would invite all the people in the village to come, and they would sit down and feed them all, give them all a free meal, because that way you really get the blessings, right? Not only you ask for blessings, but, you make someone so happy by giving them nice food. And then naturally in their heart, they're going to give you all their well wishes and blessings. I mean, it's such a beautiful culture. Now, people are cursing us. No wonder why things don't go well. But, in Vedic culture, that's seen as very important. We need the good wishes and blessings of others. So only after getting all those blessings and everything from all the people, then they would actually engage in the sexual act. And, just a few points about that. And that ceremony of getting all the blessings from people and that's called Garbhadana Samskara. That's a purificatory activity recommended, called Garbhadana Samskara. That's before even conceiving the child. So very evolved civilization. To get the best possible child. That's the idea. You want whenever you do some activity, you want the best results, isn't it? Why do you want to do something and get some useless result? You want the best possible result. You want a very highly evolved soul coming into your wife's womb. Very highly evolved soul. And to get that, you need some blessings. You don't want someone coming from some lower dimension, some ghostly kind of being like that, it's like Mad Max, coming to the world. We want to bring some saintly person, that, like we said, we can help them to further evolve and get out of the material world. So that was the whole culture. And then even the man and the woman, when they do come together to have sex, then they would want to have a very pleasing, peaceful attitude, very, very pleasing attitude. And not be like now in modern society, often sex is happening after being drunk, and the people can't even remember what happened the night before. that's ridiculous. I mean, what kind of, consciousness the man and the woman are in when they conceive the child, that's definitely going to contribute to what kind of child you end up getting. So if you're drunk or had some drugs or something, what kind of result we're going to get? Not good. And we look around and see the kind of people. We see zombies walking up and down the street many times. I mean, God, I went to the public library today. I was waiting for my car to get fixed. And I don't know, they must have released the local people that were in some rehabilitation ward or something, local rehabilitation place, psycho ward or something like that, because just this whole group of people just filled up the library, and I can tell they all had severe mental problems. And I'm not pushing them down or anything like that, but I'm saying, look at the quality of humanity that we have. And we might think it's completely normal, but no, it's not normal for people to be so mentally disturbed. I mean, the number one pharmaceutical drug 50 years ago was aspirin. You got a physical problem, a headache. What's the number one pharmaceutical drug now? It's like Prozac or something, or they've probably got a new one now. It's like antidepressant. That's not a good result. That's not a good result. What are we doing? And it's all starting from here. When we conceive the child, it's all starting from there. I'm not saying that's the only factor. If you contaminate the child with some deadly chemicals after they're born, that's not going to help as well. But, these are all different factors that influence like that. So in Vedic culture, they want to have husband and wife, they love each other, like that. They're dutifully, like I said, they're trained by their parents to serve. So the boy's trained to serve the girl. The girl's trained to serve the boy. So, and then they don't care if they don't get it their way all the time. It's not about me. Isn't it? In the West, it's all about me. I'm the center of the universe, right? That's why I was educated from my parents at school. But actually, that's a ridiculous idea. It doesn't all revolve around us. We're just so minute, so insignificant. So, and the real pleasure is in service. And once you start doing it, change the mentality, then you find, wow, this is so much better than just being a self-centered brat. Then there's so much more pleasure in this way of living and serving, and you get a real taste. That's why people love to be welfare workers. And often welfare workers don't even get paid, right? Why do people do welfare work? Why? They're not even getting paid. That's ridiculous, right? You think about it materially. No, but they get a taste for it because there's a pleasure and just unconditional service. We are not expecting anything in return. There's such a taste in that because that's the nature of the soul, to serve. So the boy and the girl, they want to please their partner and like that and serve and like that. And they have that in their mind. That's their objective, why they're going to have sex. That's their prime goal, is to produce a nice child. Some good soul can come into a human body, and then you're going to train them up like that. And then, engage in that. You don't have to explain that. It's like you don't have to teach someone how to eat. You don't have to teach someone how to sleep. You don't have to teach someone how to have sex, because it's just the natural, instinctive thing. You don't need to be taught how to do it. So, this idea of sex education in school is complete nonsense. It's complete nonsense. You don't need to teach kids how to have sex. What you do need to teach them is how not to have sex. Do you get it? I said you need to teach them how to control it. You don't need to teach them how to have it. It's comes naturally. It's a need of the body. Everyone knows. When the time's right, then you know how to do it. But the purpose of education should be that we need to keep it under control, keep it restricted. Because if it gets out of control, I tell you, it's not good. There's so many bad outcomes out of unrestricted and uncontrolled sex, right? Like people raping each other and everything like that. And some people, in the marital problems or whatever like that, and they'll kill each other. Like one man will kill another man over the woman. or vice versa. The woman will arrange the husband to get killed or whatever like that, or blah blah blah. People get raped, people get killed. There's so many horrible outcomes when it gets out of control. So we need to learn how to control it. It can be a very good thing. You can bring wonderful children up in the world and they can be beneficial to the whole society and everything. Or it can be some very destructive people. It can lead to our being killed, or completely screwed up, abused, exploited. We have so many cases. They were abused, exploited, killed, like that. So what outcome do you want? So it needs to be kept under control. Just like it's saying, right? The love of money is the root of all evils. It doesn't say money is the root of all evils, but the love of money is the root of all evils. The material thing is not good or bad. Sex, is it good? Is it bad? It's neither. But it's how you deal with it. Money, is it good or bad? Money, you can feed 1,000 people with money, which is fantastic. Or with money, you can go to the casino and ruin your whole life and suffer and destroy your family through gambling. So don't become absorbed in it. These material things. Don't become intoxicated and absorbed, so attracted and bewildered by all these material things. They're not going to bring us the real happiness like that. So that's what we need to be educated in. Not how to have sex, how to reduce it. So then just a few basic things. So in the night time, obviously, that's when sex normally happens, in the night time. You don't do it in the daytime, should not do that. And then also not good, which is important to know, is you don't have sex at sunset and you don't have sex at dawn when the sun's rising. That's a bad time. We call that inauspicious. Inauspicious means a bad time, ashubha in Sanskrit. That's a bit technical reason why, but I'll just say a few things. It's probably going to go over your head. But it's said that Lord Shiva, I don't know if another talk about Lord Shiva, travels around at that time of dawn and dusk with his associates who are ghosts and hobgoblins and things. You might think that's a bit airy-fairy, but these things are real. Ghosts are real, like that. And it said Lord Shiva, if he sees a man and woman having sex at dawn or dusk, then he puts one of his ghostly associates in that womb of that woman. So, hey presto, that's why we have a few ghostly people wandering around on the streets. One of the reasons. Like that. So yeah, not at dawn or dusk, just at night time like that. And then they would have sex when the woman is fertile. That means they're able to conceive. When's that? So the woman has a menstrual period, usually once a month. It goes for whatever, 3, 4, 5 days or whatever. So, and a few days after that, that is the prime time. That is when the woman is fertile for conceiving a child at that time. So just after the menstrual period, and that's, the best period. It maybe goes for, I don't know exactly. It's not my specialty. But it goes for, 4 or 5 days or whatever after the woman stops bleeding. Then it goes for 4 or 5 days like that. And so that's the time to have sex, at that time. Not other times. Definitely not during the menstrual period. And not before the menstrual period, the woman's not fertile, but after that period. So that a married couple could have sex once a month. Not every day, sort of once a month. So that's restriction, right? But that's what we need. We need it to be restricted. Not if you do it every day, then your life is spoiled, mate. And well, if that's what you do, that's your choice. But Vedic culture is giving us some further ideas. And then if the woman becomes pregnant, then no sex. So if she doesn't become pregnant, then you can have sex same time next month, and until becomes pregnant. But if as soon as the wife becomes pregnant, then no sex. We're running out of time. It's very unfortunate. And then after the child is born, no sex for 6 months. because the woman's body is shattered, right, from conceiving a child. It's like a near-death experience. So no sex for 6 months after the child is born. And then after that, you can produce another one if you can. You know, you can produce another one after that. So like you can see how it's regulated. First of all, by marriage, that, yeah, I'm only going to have sex with one person. Not 2, 5, 10, 20, 100. Oh, I'll have sex with that one and then I'm not enjoying them anymore. And they are gone too old now. I'll get rid of that one and start with another young one. We'll get another young one now. And then do it all over again. And I'll throw them out. And, you know, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 10, 20, 100, unlimited. You know, so you never escape, you know, and then you have to go all over again in the next life. And I tell you what, you know, that during sex, obviously, the man is passing semen into the woman, right? Obviously. And that semen is the essence of the energy of the body. It's called ojas, if I remember correctly. It's called ojas. So that semen is like the essence of our energy, of the man's vitality and energy. It takes, our guru said, 40 drops of blood to make 1 drop of semen. Imagine how much semen gets passed at that time of sex. So much semen, so many drops. But it takes, for every drop of semen, 40 drops of blood you need to produce. So how much food you're eating to convert that food into blood. And then how much blood to convert that into a tiny bit of semen. And then you just chuck it out every time you have sex. And you might say, well, who cares? Just having a good time, you know. Who cares about the semen? But that's your essential energy. So you're losing your essential energy. So it's actually bad for the man's health. It's very bad. And I tell you what, even some Western people know it. Because there's a story about Muhammad Ali. You all know who Muhammad Ali is, right? He's the like super duper #1 heavyweight boxing champion or whatever, and going back a long time ago. Muhammad Ali, famous, right? His boxing, what do you call it? Instructor, guru, or whatever like that. There's another name for it, I can't remember. His boxing boss said no sex before the big match. No sex. So he said, I can't remember how many months, so I don't want to say, but he said some period of months before the boxing match, no sex. Because he has a brain. He knows that he's going to lose his strength if he has sex before the big match. So he had to like control his sex desire. So that's one of the reasons why probably Muhammad Ali was so good, because he controlled his sex desire. And interestingly, another thing just came into my mind. It said that that's one of the reasons why Gandhi became so great. He was known as Mahatma. Mahatma means great soul. Maha means great, Atma means soul. Mahatma Gandhi, famous politician, right? Helped get independence for India and so forth. He, a very saintly person like that. It said but he was so determined to kick the British out of India, right? So determined. He was in prison for so many years and fasting and doing so many things, so determined. It said, where did he get all that determination from? Because even though he was married, but he made a vow not to have sex. And it said because he stopped having sex, he gained so much determination, so much mental, intellectual power like that through doing that. So it said if you don't pass the semen out, it goes up, it rises up in your body and goes into the brain and nourishes your brain. So the person's brain becomes very strong and they'll have super memory as well. The memory will improve, physical strength will improve, determination, power, everything will benefit. The only time it's worthwhile to lose your semen is if you want to produce a child. Then that's a good sacrifice. Then you sacrificed your life energy, sir, you know, for a good purpose, to help one soul come into this world, give him an opportunity to come in this world and work through his karma and get liberated. That's a worthwhile, reason to have a child. Otherwise, you just destroying yourself, without any benefit. Without any benefit. Well, there's a lot to say, but I said about an hour, so we've come up to the hour point, and I haven't seen any comments there. Haven't seen any comments, so we might leave it there. I'll just have a little look in some notes to see if... Oh yeah, one thing I wanted to say is that... So, if you're a spiritual practitioner, and you're developing love, want to develop love for God or Supreme or whatever like that, then why get married? Sex is not a good thing, and like that. It's just distracting you from God and everything. Then if you're into spiritual life, and then why would you get married? And it's because of the mind. The mind is like a monkey. It's jumping here and there, and it's so attached to enjoyment of the senses. The mind is so tricky and so strong. The mind is very powerful. Arjuna tells Krishna that in the Bhagavad Gita. The mind is very obstinate and strong like that. So even though we have some desire to get out of the world and everything like that, but still there's a strong desire to want to gratify the senses. We're so conditioned by these desires to eat and have sex and everything for many lifetimes. Like, it's not so quick to get out of it. So the recommendation is, for most people, is to get married. And like the idea is, like I said, to help keep the mind peaceful. So the example given is like, if you work in a sweet shop, then you don't want to eat sweets anymore. You get it? It's like, if you're surrounded by sweets, you don't want to eat sweets. So it's like, and if you can't eat sweets, then you want to eat sweets, right? And then you binge out, right? If I'm not going to eat sweets for a month, and then one day you walk past a sweet shop, and then you just pig out and indulge and eat too many, like that. So that's what the mind does, If you try to stop the mind from having what it wants, at one point it'll just explode and go crazy. So, but it's like that. If you're not living with the opposite sex, then you want it because you don't have it, right? The mind wants what it doesn't have. So the man doesn't have a woman, so he's always thinking about a woman. I want a woman, I want a woman, I want a woman. But then, and so he's not able to think about what he should be thinking about, which is his relationship with God. And then if actually the man gets a woman, then the mind becomes peaceful. Oh, okay, I have a woman now. I don't need to think about it anymore. It's not that the man's not thinking about his wife, but it's not going to be as intense and in a lusty kind of just gratifying way. It can just become a nice relationship. But then the mind can concentrate on what it's supposed to be concentrating on. So therefore it is recommended to have a wholesome relationship with the opposite sex. And then side by side we can progress spiritually. And then if we progress spiritually, then that if we fix up our broken relationship with the supreme lover, with God, then Krishna means supreme lover, all attractive. So if we fix up that relationship, then all of our other relationships can get fixed up. So like I said in the beginning, that a lot of our relationships are broken and frustrated and not working well. But that can be dealt with very easily. If you fix up your original relationship with the Supreme, then slowly that will improve my relationship with my partner, with my kids, with my parents, with my friends, with my neighbours, and blah, blah, blah. And then eventually you love everyone. But we're going to start with loving God, and then eventually we can love everyone. And just one final thing, I know I've gone a bit over time. If you can't continue now, we can watch it another time. But just one more point, that the Vedic culture made it, very big emphasis on getting that first relationship with the man and woman right. That the first relationship, get that right. Because if that first one breaks, if the first marriage breaks, then that makes it harder the next time round. Because the psychology of the man and woman is like this. So the psychology of the woman is that is very attached. That's the nature of a woman, to be attached. It's actually the nature of a man to be detached. And the soul is the same. But in the man's body, then functions on detachment, and the woman's body functions on attachment. So the nature of a woman is she's going to become very attached. So it said the first man that satisfies her in sex, she becomes very attached to that man. So if that relationship breaks with the first man, then even though she might have number 2, 3, 4, 10, whatever, but then that won't be as good as she won't be able to put her heart, into those relationships as much as what she put her heart into the first one. And what will happen, she'll toughen up. So in the beginning, she's very soft-hearted. Women are naturally very gentle and soft-hearted and serving and giving and surrendered and devoted and everything like that, right? Naturally. But if the woman gets exploited and abused and spat out and everything trodden on, then she toughens up. So that heart becomes like steel framed second time round, then more third time round, more fourth time round. So Vedic culture, understanding that psychology, makes it very important. Like I said, the parents, very carefully choose like that. And one thing that helps in that choice is the parents would get an expert astrologer to help them to make sure that the boy or the girl they're looking for is going to be compatible. Compatible means have some similar interests, similar natures. I tell you what, I'll give you an example. What's compatibility? What's an example? My mum and dad, they're both atheists. But they don't think there's a God, they don't think there's a soul. Is that bad? Well, not for their relationship. That's good. That's very compatible for a man and a woman. And they've been together for well, how old am I now? I'm over 50. So they've been together for 60 years or whatever. So and they're still going strong, because they're very compatible. They don't believe in God, So in one sense, that might not be good, but it's very good for their relationship. And like my wife and I, we both believe in God, so that's very compatible. So you need some common things in point. It's some common points of interest and stuff like that. So anyway, the astrologer knows which ones to check for and everything like that. And I'm not saying it's guaranteed it's going to work. Heaps of people had astrologers check their, charts and still the marriage broke. But like that, they would just do as much as possible to help make sure it works. But one of the main things, like I said, the boy and the girl would be trained by their parents and also teachers and that from a young age, that it's not just about you, mate. You're in it for serving. You got to serve your family and serve your parents and serve God like that. So you develop a completely different mentality, and there's much more chance that the relationship's going to work. So yeah, if you want to have good relationships in that, you got to see the big picture. I'd like to conclude by saying that you can't just look at the man and the woman. You can't just look at the marriage. You got to see the full picture, that you're not just a man, you're not just a woman. Your purpose is not just to enjoy your senses, your body. You're an eternal soul, and your purpose is to get out of this material world. And to get out of this world, you need to have everything you need, but in such a way not to agitate your mind. So you need some food, and you need a roof over your head, and you need companions and partners and so forth, and you need to protect your needs in that, and side by side cultivating your higher knowledge and spiritual awareness and everything like that. And so that's very important. So this is just a little piece in the jigsaw puzzle, is this, but it's also an important piece. It's a necessary piece. So I hope that's something useful there, and wish you all the best in every aspect of your life. And yeah, try to bring some good souls into this world. We really need it at this point. We really need more good souls in this world to counteract counteract all the baddies. Yeah, so yeah, we need to improve our relationships and how we conceive and everything like that. So I'll leave you with that. Take care.